Hey everyone, welcome back to the second game of our series on the three-game 1500 point tournament that Paddy and I both played in last weekend. So I won the first round against Adam and I was paired against Ricko and his Tomb Kings list. I had not a lot of experience playing against Tomb Kings and it was difficult. Ricko wasn't running, he was running a lot of units. So if you look from the top, he has 3 chariots here. He has 2 chariots, 3 chariots on the left. There's a unit of skirmishing skeletons in front, 2 carrion, 5 Ushabti, a level 2 behind them, a casket, and its attendants. He has a necro, the Hierophant or the level 4 in this unit of skeleton warriors. And then he has a Necrosphinx up the top here with 2 units of skirmishers. One that's got 10 skeletons, one's got 5. So there's a lot going on, and we were playing, I can't remember, is it called meeting engagement? Meeting engagement, where you have the 12-inch band diagonally across the board, which I also had not played before in a tournament setting and had found difficult to sort of coordinate. So that was really interesting in itself. And what ended up happening, so he could out deploy me, and I ended up in probably a interesting but not deliberately advantageous position where my sisters were far back and I had sort of the sky cutters and the skeletons on one side trying to do some damage, and the mage and the griffin on the right who are really there to sort of benefit from the cover because I'm worried about this Necrosphinx. So the Necrosphinx had marked the griffin. I'm trying to get a combat where the mage gets a charge on the griffin, and we'll see what happens. Pretty much from the get-go, so even though I got the +1, and this is for you, Paddy, I rolled a 1 and Ricko rolled a 3, and he got to go first. So he had a lot of missile fire. He had the reroll 1s up spell and the casket on light, and he's able to kill 1 unit of archers. He's able to take off 2 other archers from the unit, and he's able to, the Ushabti, just knock out one of the sky cutters completely. So what I decided to do is just turn tail and run. I've got nothing on this flank. His chariot's playing around with this hill. I can either stay out in the open and get shot. Initially, my plan was maybe to fly behind this house and see what I could get, but the chariots were probably going to get the charge off on the sky cutter then, and I wasn't going to be able to hang on. So yeah, I think Ricko might have been surprised, but I turned around, and due to the massive mobility of the sky cutter, start getting out of there. This becomes the theme for the game. So on the left-hand side, he's able to send this chariot unit up, and then I just sort of make it difficult and get in here. I fly the mage over. I want the cover, and the griffin I sort of position in a way where he's going to have to expend some energy for this chariot to get past. In my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I can't do a lot with these units. So in a way, it might look like they're not doing much, but I've sort of gone into conserving my points straight away. What ends up happening here is that I just start backing off. The sisters pick off some units, so I'm able to take down 4 of these skeletons, and I just have to unload with Ruby Ring and get rid of it because they will just get raised back up. And that's sort of what happens throughout the game. So I back down with the sisters. I've got units coming over on this side, and I'm shooting off anything that exposes itself, and it's where Ignores Cover is just such a powerful ability. I'm able to target these guys that are in the woods, and if they want to come forward, they've got to stay outside that wood, or I'm just shooting out that -1 or -2 modifier already with ballistic skill 5. So that's what happens. I'm able to knock off that small unit of 5 skeletons. I'm able to knock off another unit of 5 skeletons on this side. I do get this unit of 10 skeletons down to 2, but the shot on the right here is to show that it just gets rezzed back 6 the next turn. So that's the game plan. The skeleton chariot gets around the griffin, but the 12 small sisters unit are able to knock it down and kill it. So with that high quality short range action from the sisters. And on this side, what's happening is I'm able to zone out. Like, why I like playing this this list so much is the mage has so many different functions. So on one hand, the way we deployed, a lot of the deployment was around this 19-inch maximum charge range of the sky cutters, and I think the Necrosphinx had 18. So I got this tiny edge that I can manipulate. And what ends up happening is the mage is sitting within 24 of the necrosphere of the level 4, so I can dispel at full tilt, and within that charge range of the necrosphere. So if he comes forward, I'll charge it. And if he sits back, we're just stuck with me zoning this area on the right flank. So ultimately, I keep sort of shrinking backwards. I've got a few bow shots here. I do sort of make a mistake a little bit. At one point, he does, like, because he's at 24, he's able to punch through. I think I dispelled Ruby Ring, but I had to worry about Unquiet Spirits he gets in range for at one point, or he might, no, get Ruby Ring off. I think Unquiet Spirits I was able to stay out of range for. But we got through, did a wound or two to the mage, but even having the 4+ armor save there on toughness 4, I was able to just sort of not take any sort of significant damage. So the zoning there, this mage, and like while it's a threat in combat, especially towards large targets, the ability to counter level 4s is a big deal in this format. So yeah, like I just keep shrinking backwards. Try to protect my Griffin. The Griffin's got a Bow of Avalon, so I'm trying to give it shots here, but the Ushabti would annihilate it if given the chance. The archers here, an interesting scenario. I don't think Ricko realized the consequences. He's carrying charge. My archers like flee, and he rolls massively. Like he can't prevent the 6 on the max charge range and ends up going forward 22 because he'd added Swift Stride. And that ends up, I think Ricko thought that would lead to a failed charge, but they go the full distance, which brings them into sight of my Skycutter unit. These archers rally and can shoot, which is ridiculous in some ways, or maybe we're just got to get used to it. And these Sky Sisters are able to pick off, I just am able to shoot everything, essentially. I maneuver these sisters out of the way, so these guys, the other sisters can shoot, and they do enough to knock down the carrion. So on the right-hand side, I'm zoning out these units, and in the middle, the Ushabti are marching forward. I forgot evasive, which would have helped. I'm sort of sitting in that zone. I move back with the shoot, move back, shoot, stay at 30. He walks forward, tries to shoot, but because none of his units can really march at great distance, what ends up happening is I'm able to back away. This is the top of turn 5. Ricko asked me if we want to call it. He's not going to be able to pull through. If he pulls his chariots forward, I come forward, shoot them off. These units are not going to be able to move fast enough forward to engage. And luckily for me, there was some scenario rules in the second round. So what would have been a 10-10, he's able to claim, we're playing for table quarters. You need to have a rank, but I'm able to show that my sisters will reform into open order on the top of turn 6. They will have one rank being 10+, so they'll rank up in 5s, and I'll gain 2, or the bonuses for 2 table quarters, and he'll gain the bonuses for 1. And it means that on the surface, I win the round by the barest of margins. But an interesting game overall. Also, we were able to finish earlier, which sometimes helps in a tournament. I think the takeaways for me is zoning is a really big deal if you're trying to play well. So it's not just charge ranges, but what are sadly, I think that in Warhammer, if you're trying to play well, the person who enters the threat range tends to get destroyed. And so the other player then gets to determine what they're going to do next. I think it's something long-term the designers should look at. This is a kill points game, but turtling is the way that you win at a high level. So it wasn't just the zones, but having access to this, a large amount of space, and the missile fire meant that any unit that sort of came out in isolation was destroyed because I could concentrate all of my fire on it. And that's probably the second takeaway, that I don't know how many units have Ignor's cover. I think it's Way Watchers and Sisters, but Way Watchers have this tax where you need to play the Waystock. I suppose that the Handmaiden is necessary for the Sisters too, because you want to play them out of core. But because it also affects the way that you can deploy, so that you can deploy tightly with a large amount of sisters and draw a line of sight to another model and not take the modifier for being obscured by your own units. But on the other hand, just being able to shoot into a forest at 30 inches, ballistic skill 5, you're probably moving long range and you're still shooting on 4s instead of the 6s that would come from hard cover or the soft cover. even shooting at these individual sized skirmishing units, I could just mash so much fire to wipe them out. And then anything else that comes out in the open is getting hit on sometimes threes. So I didn't even blow the horn in this match. I was saving it for the Ashabti if they came into range, and I was trying to blow them down in one turn. But overall, this was the game that the sisters were a big deal in. So the mage and its flexibility was a huge deal, but the sisters were the reason I was able to chip away points. I think totally it was only 165 to 140 my way before we looked at the battle point bonuses. Beyond that, I think if you're going to play in tournaments, you're looking at playing for a draw. This is probably anathema to some players. They would have just gone for it. There was a moment where I could have sent the mage into the Necrosphinx, but his level 4 would have been close enough that Doppelganger could have got dispelled. Now, if I pop that Necrosphinx and keep going, I probably win the game because I can get into the Griffin can come forward and get into the side of his other units. However, it's just too dicey. It was pretty close to 50-50, and I had a plan that meant I could eke out a draw or a win, and a tiny win. And I think in this case, that's the way you have to play tournaments. And I'm sort of proud of myself for this game. After I got smashed on the flank and had to retreat, I wasn't really sure at how powerful my army was as the defender, the controlling army, and it turned out to be much more powerful. And I think that's how this list has to evolve. As high elves, every death is priceless. But it was fascinating to see this work. And like I really do think the Tomb King's Ashabti shooting list might be the best gun line in the game. Big call, I know, with great cannons out there and other things. But in terms of playing for a draw, some armies can't do it, but you've got to have some method here to think about when things go badly, can you eke out a game and not lose too much? So there you go. See you in the